Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
Welcome, everyone, to the Non-Sequitur Show. I apologize. I am very, very all over the place today. The word I choose to use is discombobulated. I think it's apropos because I am just like not functioning at all four cylinders today for some reason. I've been really busy. I was on a stream earlier with Nikki. Before that, from Manel. I was supposed to go live with Aaron tonight, and I totally forgot because I had planned this with Tony here. My bad. So I apologize to everyone. However, we're going to get this going. We are going to do this tonight. I have the wonderful, the amazing, the brilliant, the super talented, and much more creative and far more informative, I guess, on these particular matters than myself, Mr. Tony Reid. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on the show. It's fun to talk about this.
It's been a while.
It has. It's been years. It's been a few years.
So let me ask before we get started. Okay, so people that don't know you, you have a wonderful channel, and you have a series called How Young Earth Creationism Taught Me Real Science. It's one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. I mean, huge props to you. I mean, I told you before, you were one of the reasons why I stopped doing this kind of stuff, because you and Pelagia did it so well. I was like, oh, hell, I'll just let them do it. I'll just talk about it.
You know, everybody has their way of teaching, their way of expressing themselves. I decided that I was going to do my show in such a way that a creationist would watch it and be hit over the head with the facts, despite their not wanting to know the facts. And so it's a fun little show. It takes a lot of research. Each episode takes a long time to make, and of course, as you know, I always try to make sure I have my primary sources available for anybody that has any questions about it. And the cool thing is, people like you and other people have even chimed in when I've made mistakes, and so I've been able to actually correct those on the show as well. So,
yeah, that's what I've noticed about you and Pelagia the most. Both of you are very, very fact oriented, right? Very detail oriented. You want to make sure the information you put out is correct, and when you have been approached with maybe something you minorly got wrong, you're willing to entertain it and go, okay, let me look into it and fix it. And a lot of content creators just won't do that, you know.
I can't imagine doing that. I mean, especially, let's just say hypothetically you were to correct me on something. When somebody's wrong and they keep making a bad argument with you, you don't let them go. You hold their feet to the fire, and you're not different than a lot of the people that watch my show. They tell me that I've done something wrong, and I even once in a while, I think in the first season, I kind of blew off responding, and this one person just kept griping over and over again. That's when I started doing my episodes where I would just make all the corrections to my show and come back to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Look, we have a little game, as you know, people love to try to correct me, and sometimes they actually do, but the problem is, in order to correct me, just like they have to correct you, they need to bring the evidence. Right? Bring the citations, bring the argumentation. When I have somebody tell me, hey, Steve, you're wrong, and I go, okay, please show me why I'm wrong, and they say, here's a dictionary or something, or, just something so myopically stupid that it's not showing that I'm actually wrong. It's just maybe they're interpreting things or not understanding the subject material. That's not a demonstration that my facts are in error, right? And there's a huge difference. I mean, I don't know if you read my paper that I had on academic EDU, but I've had a few people try to refute it. None have succeeded, and one person even made a blog post about it, and I went over that blog. I was like, okay, look, if you're going to spend enough time to do this, I'm going to go over it on my channel and show why you have errors on it, which I did. So I corrected him.
Did you have them on your show too?
I don't know if he came on or not. I don't remember. I've had so many people on. I know he's seen it, but I don't remember if he came on. But the blog's still up, but the blog is completely horrifyingly bad. I mean, just anybody who knows anything about a Venn diagram will show that, he got things wrong. But like I said, the point is that when we are shown to be incorrect, we fix it. And that's a big thing on my channel, is that my subscribers love calling me out on stuff. They love, hey, Steve, you screwed up here. Fix it. Okay. It's a game
I do notice that.
Yeah, it's a little game we like to play, right?
It's good because I like the way you play it. I mean, you do tell people that they've corrected you, but they better show it. I've always been impressed by that.
Thank you. Somebody's correcting me right now. They say that my audio is in mono, and I think they're actually right. And I've fixed that before, and I forgot how to do it. Yes, it is coming through only in mono. So let me see if I can fix that real quick. We'll fix it in post. No, I'm just kidding. Let me down mix it. Okay, that should fix that problem. I've down mixed both sides to mono now. I don't have a stereo mic, so that should have fixed that problem. But see, they tell me these things in real time. My live chat's incredible and to fix this kind of stuff. So, anyways, let's dive into the topic, shall we?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, because I know this is one of the things that you really have a pet peeve with, as well as I, because I believe we're actually a young Earth creationist at one time, right?
No, I was never a young Earth creationist. I considered it. There was a point in time, I guess when I was younger, I was honest enough to realize I didn't know, so I couldn't really argue. But then I came across Kent Hovind's videos like 15, 20 years ago, and went through them all and went, that can't all be right. And then I just went through it argument by argument, like 8 or 9 hours, every single argument. And he's like laughing. It's a bad creationist argument every second. So it took me a long time. But when I got through it, I was like, man, he's just wrong. He's just completely wrong. And everybody else is wrong. And a lot of his, not everybody, but his arguments, a few of them are his, but almost all of them at the time were just the classic 20-year-old arguments at the time. There were arguments I heard when I was in junior high school and high school. So, it kind of led me to realize, there's a little bit more going on. And then because of that, I got a passion for science and just started studying as much as I could.
Yeah, he's that old adage that there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to his argumentations. He actually okay, so it's funny, before you came along, before your time, back in the old day, prior to the Tony time, I had gone through Ken Hovind's handbook, which I'm sure you're quite familiar with, right? And I went through and I addressed pretty much every single solitary claim in there on my own channel. This was a long time ago. This is kind of when I got started on YouTube. So yeah, I am familiar with Hovind's arguments. And of course, I've had those discussions with Hovind multiple times. He has asked to come back on the Non-Sequitur Show, believe it or not.
No kidding.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. After I had Cindy on, his ex-wife, I guess he wants to get his side of the story out. And normally I do allow that. I believe that if you discuss somebody, you kind of should have them come on your show. But I have some ethical issues with having Hovind back on. Although, granted, my top video, is getting close to 1 million subs. I should say 1 million views. It's got like 700,000, 600,000 something views with Hovind. But it's just, to me, it's not worth it having Hovind on because I just find him so morally egregious anymore. It's not just the fact he's put out misinformation, but he's become just so unethical. And so I have an issue with having it on. But I don't know. We'll see. I can't really say for certainty at this time, but I thought we would just talk about some of the P.R.A.T.S, though, about young creationism. And a couple that, like, one that's come around just recently I wanted to talk about, then whatever you want to bring up and just kind of have a free form.
That sounds good. I mean, you gave me a little bit, but I know you have a presentation that it's going to probably blow me away a little bit.
It's a little bit of presentation. I got something on Noah's Ark that I want to show you eventually, and then I got this one from that Jason Lisle keeps bringing up. Okay, so as most people that have ever looked into young creationism know, there's a problem in cosmogony and astronomy and astrophysics called the distant starlight problem. Now, if you look at my background here, most people recognize this from the name James Webb Telescope, right? It's pretty well-known picture by now, even though it's relatively new. And so, the creationists have a problem. They have to just show why or how these stars, which they do agree are billions of light years away. They recognize that some of these stars are 13.8 billion, maybe not in this diagram per se, but in some of the other diagrams, they're 13.8 billion light years away. So the question is, how do we see light from something that is that far away? If the Earth is only 6,000 or 7,000 years old, right? It's a problem in young Earth creationism. So one of the P.R.A.T.S that are out there, Jason Lisle, who I've never talked to, but I'm well familiar with his work. He's set out to try to solve this problem. Now, there's been other ways of solving it. I know you remember Dr. Humphreys and his white hole theory and things of that nature. And Humphreys, I do know and I've talked to, but Jason Lisle has a very interesting approach. One, it mathematically works. It does work, but it violates some very strong principles of philosophy, which I happen to like. So I thought we would kind of dive into that. I know you did a couple videos on it and discuss why this particular argument is such a P.R.A.T., because it has been refuted as just being a philosophical issue more than a scientific issue. And it certainly doesn't resolve anything, right? So
No.
what do you remember from the distant starlight problem as far as like the asynchronous, he calls it ASC, asynchronous light convention, right?
Well, I mean, the first starlight issue that I talked about is that I've discussed was the idea that I think was put forth by Hovind, which was that it was traveled faster in the past. I'm pretty sure we've covered all that in this in your show a million times probably by now. But from what I gathered from Jason Lisle's, I've only heard a bit of his version of it, but it's the idea that light travels at instantaneous speed until it hits something, and then once it reflects off of it, it comes back, it bounces off at the speed of light.
Twice the speed of light. No, sorry, 1/2 the speed of light, because it has to be half the distance.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's right.
1/2 c or 0.5 c. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because one of the ways that the original young creationists were trying to resolve this was what's called light in transit. That God created light in transit close to us so we would see it, right? The problem with that is it is very close to what's called the Omphalos hypothesis, which is basically an unfalsifiable belief in philosophy that things were created yesterday, last Tuesdayism, last Wednesdayism, right? And this would make the appearance of an old universe that was only created 6,000 years ago. This makes God deceptive. Right? This would be a lying God to us. He's basically says, hey, look, yeah, I only created the earth 6,000 years, or the universe, everything in the universe 6,000 years ago, but I'm going to make it with the appearance of age to fool you. This is a deceptive being. Jason Lisle doesn't like that. He thinks that the Omphalos hypothesis does make a deceptive being. So, like you said, what his theory is this. His theory is that we are seeing light as it is as we are talking right now. In other words, we're seeing things in real time. Light is instantaneously leaving those stars and hitting us. It's traveling at infinite speed. Okay?
Right.
Mathematically, this is actually something that does work out. Now, we have what's called an isotropic principle. And the isotropic principle is that for light, that light has the same speed in all directions. Right? So if light's going this way or that way, it's going to be traveling at c. Anisotropy would state that light doesn't have the same speed depending on its vector or its velocity. So, as you said, he believes, or he's trying to model, that light is instantaneously leaving these stars, traveling at an infinite speed. We're seeing it, and then light leaving us is leaving at 1/2 the speed, making the total trip time the same. This is just a convention. We have a convention because based on law of parsimony, axiom Occam's razor, that light's going to be isotropic. Because most laws of physics are isotropic. You know, if you have heat distribution from a single source, it travels out in all directions equally, right?
Right.
Why would it be out? What is the reason why it would be more geocentric? That light is going to be traveling at instant speed to us, but not on the way out, right? It's going to make us kind of ascend. Although I've read recently that Jason Lisle has said, no, it's not just the Earth. It's any place is going to appear to be in the universe. I don't know how that works out, though. Like, for example, let's say you're on another star, like Vega, right? At Vega now, we're going to be appearing instantaneously to them. I mean, they're going to be the center. How is that even going to work?
That doesn't really, well, it doesn't work. The idea is, but I mean, I don't think he offers a way to test it, does he?
There's no way to test it. The anisotropy synchronic, how do you say it? Synchrony. Yeah. The asynchronic synchrony convection that he proposes is not testable. The reason being is this is just a presupposition that we have is that light travels uniformly in all directions at the same speed. That's it. There's no way to test that. There have been ways they've tried to test one directionality speed of light, but they don't seem to work. Right? So we just assume that. Okay, let me give it. You like graphics? We'll do this like this way. So you remember the Star of Jesus, Bethlehem?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Look at that. There, you got Bethlehem. Got the Star of Jesus right there above his head, right? Okay. Now imagine this. Let's say this, like, I don't know what, Vegas, like 25 light years away or something. Let's say this is Vegas, 25 light years away or something. Then we have the Earth. Let's get the Earth in there. Okay, there's the Earth, right? Earth is flat, right?
Of course.
Okay. So we got a flat Earth. So it's going to take time for light to travel from the star to the Earth, correct?
Right.
Okay. And it also takes time for light to travel back to the star.
Correct.
This is now we assume that C is equal in both directions. This
right.
Because why would we not? I mean, this is what Jason doesn't ever explain. What is it that makes a non-inertial frame of reference any special that light's going to be traveling to it instantaneously? Which, by the way, does imply that the galaxy we're seeing 13 billion light years away is as it actually is right now, which seems to violate everything we know about astrophysics about how things develop over time, right? I mean, how does that even work if you have seeing something that we know takes billions of years to form? He's an astrophysicist, he knows this, yet we're seeing it in not as it was, like suggested by actual science, but we're seeing it as it is. This makes no sense. All right, so this, if we label these, right, we're going to have infinite speed toward us, right, and 1/2 speed on the way back. So this is his convention. This is why it's called asynchronous, right?
Okay.
Asynchronous light, because in one direction it's going one speed, and another one going a different speed. Which Lisle never explains why light has this behavior. Why would light travel instantly in one direction of some kind of preferred frame of reference? There's no ether or anything, right? Remember in Lens and ether? There's no ether, so that disproved this kind of whole thing that light travels differently at different speeds. As far as we know. What is the advantage? Matter of fact, you had brought this up before. What is the advantage of having this theory? What is the advantage of having creationism or evolution, right? What is the advantage of using this? All it does is make the math more complicated. It does work mathematically, but you have to do multiple transforms to make this actually work that use very sophisticated maths. Why?
It doesn't make sense. I wonder, though, I mean, I'm not sure how much more you have on this, but I do have what I believe is a way that we can show that it's wrong without even having to, I mean, without having to go into the maths. Well, at least not as much math. I mean, have you entertained or maybe even refuted the Supernova SN 1987A?
Well, I mean, I'm well familiar with it. I mean, Supernova 1987A puts the minimum bound of the age of the universe at, I think, at 167,000 years old.
Well,
give or take.
Yeah. But the thing about that is, because of what happened when that supernova went off in 1987, we now have, I think it's, how many years is that since then? 35 years that since that that we saw that happen. And what we can also see is a bunch of gas rings that are around that star that are about 35 light. They're about just like 35 light years away, I suppose. What we see, or is it 35? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, but we just trig for that, right?
Whatever the measurement is, we can see that the light, we can see the light from the star directly. We can see the star from the rings, or we can see the light from the rings,
the reflection
bouncing off those rings. Now, if it's 165,000 light years away, we shouldn't see that light. But it gets even better there because the remnant that's left over in that supernova is spinning, and it is technically a pulsar. We can see it get brighter as it faces us, and then we can see it fade out, and it's facing the rings, and then the rings within, whatever that distance is, we can see the light form like 6 to 8 months later in the rings. So we're seeing that the light travel from the supernova to the rings and then bounce off and come back to us.
No, I completely agree with that. All that is absolutely true. The only thing is it doesn't disprove this. What that does, though, I'm going to use the word prove, but obviously in science it doesn't prove anything. So I'm using that very, very indiscriminately. That it proves. What it does is it demonstrates. It demonstrates that the age of the Earth or the age of the universe is that the minimum 160. Is it 165 or 167? I don't remember the deck number. 160 something, right?
It's 165 is close enough.
All right, it's fine. Yeah, whatever. So what it does is show that the minimum age is 165. Now, Lisle's not arguing that, though, right? Yes, I think that he absolutely knows that the universe is older, right? But that's not what the asynchronous light convention that he's talking about is talking about. What he's saying is that it's not a matter of the age. They accept that the age of it looks old, right? He'll say that, oh, yes, it has the appearance of 165,000 years old. But the reason why it has that appearance is because light's traveling instantaneously to us at one direction. That's how we can see it within 6,000 years, right? Because if supernova 1987A is less than 6,000 years old, right, or 7,000 years old, everything in the universe has to be less than 7,000 years old, according to Young Earth Creationism. Maybe 10 if you're doing a range, but most of them say 7, right? Give or take. All right. So supernova 1970A has to be less than 7,000 years old. So the distant starlight problem would be is how do we actually see that if it takes light 165,000 years to get to us? Well, Jason says, well, no, it doesn't take 165,000 years to get to us. We see it instantaneously. When 1987A went nova, when we observed that, we saw it instantly. When we saw it reflect off the gaseous rings around there, we saw it instantly. So yes, he will acknowledge that it has the appearance of 165 some odd thousand years old. But light did not travel 165,000 years to get to us. It did so instantly. See the difference?
Well, except
it's dishonest. It's dishonest.
I thought he was saying that once it bounces off something, it then goes at the half the speed of light.
No, the half the speed of light would only be from our So we're the inertial frame of reference, right? Remember, Einstein said that light travels at the same speed for all observers. Right, no matter what speed you're going, whatever vector you're at, whatever velocity you have, light's always going to have c, right? So, which by the way was pretty big at the time because this kind of Newton's physics doesn't allow for this, right? Lorentzian stuff doesn't allow for it. So, when the light hits the Earth, we're seeing it as infinite. We're seeing it instantaneously. But now the light to the star is only going half the speed of light. But from their frame of reference, it's traveling instantly, which is weird. Like I said, it's all from your frame of reference. So our frame of reference, we're seeing 1987A as it was instantly, and then when it reflects off the rings, we see it instantly. So it doesn't disprove Jason's convention, but it doesn't help him either. All it does is it demonstrates that the age of the Earth, at the very minimum, has to be 165 some thousand years old. Minimum.
It seems like yet another one of the arguments. It's unfalsifiable. I mean, how can you falsify it? I mean, the original way I had heard it was sort of a modification of quantum mechanics, and that was essentially just it's instantaneous until it hits something and it reflects at half the speed of light. I hadn't heard that it's essentially just coming at the speed of light towards us, and then the rest of the universe sees it.
Yeah, because we're the observer. Now the problem with that is that if you just make it us, it's geocentric in some ways, right? It makes us have a special frame of reference, right? It violates the anthropic principle, Copernicus's anthropic principle. But he doesn't actually, I think, support that. I don't think he says that we are geocentric. Matter of fact, Young Earth Creationists deny geocentrism for the most part. I know the Creationist Ministries International, creation.com, they have a thing on their webpage that specifically denies it. Matter of fact, I think I even brought it up here. It actually denies geocentrism. So I don't think Jason Lisle suggests that the Earth has any kind of special frame of reference. I think what he suggests is that any inertial frame of reference, light is going to be traveling towards you at the speed of light, at infinite speed, but away from you at half the speed of light. But he doesn't explain why it has such an anisotropy. Why is it not? Why is there not some kind of isotropic distribution? I mean, it'd be kind of like arguing this. If I have a match in space, right, or a flame in space, you notice how it has like this blue sphere of combustion and gas, right? You've seen that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we know that heat dissipates in all directions uniformly, pretty much, right? For the most part.
Right.
But he would be saying that light travels at one speed in one direction, different from the other direction. And so if that, even though from our frame of reference, it looks the same, it's leaving that at 1/2 C. But he doesn't explain why we see things isotropically. We see these things with this even distribution. Why we would see any kind of just completely disproportionate amount of velocity from one source to another that's infinite, as opposed to just see one way and see the other way. Yes, sure, the math works out with his model, but it's non-parsimonious. It's adding a lot more complicated maths to get you the same result.
Yeah, it's funny. Also, you said that it's interesting. You say that they deny geocentrism. If I'm not mistaken, isn't Lisle also a fan of Russell Humphreys though?
He is, and Russell Humphreys. I don't know if Russell Humphreys is a geocentrist. Now I do know that he has some other issues, but go ahead.
He's not a geocentrist, but he would be what we might call a Milky Way centrist, as he believes that we are trapped in this gigantic well,
white
result of a white hole.
White hole, yeah.
And so outside of this little bubble we're in, time is traveling a whole lot faster, or at least was traveling a whole lot faster, until on a particular day God stretched the tarp of our universe, and now all of a sudden we're at the same speed. So but that was the idea, is that the universe was going much faster than we were trapped in our little gravitational bubble.
That would make it a special frame of reference, though.
It would, except for one thing. Supernova 1987A
mm-hmm.
is in our galaxy. It's within that bubble. So we still have the problem.
Yeah. And that seems to be an issue with the creationists. Every time they think they've got something, it doesn't resolve anything because all the other data is incongruent with it. They literally have to say that all we know about science is wrong in order to get their models to work. And they try real hard to do it. Like I said, mathematically, Jason's model works. His asynchronous light transmission convention is just a convention. It works. Okay, great. So what mathematically? But here's an example. You remember back in school, we had to learn about kinetics, and you have a projectile, and you use parabolic equations. Not that complicated stuff, right? Just parametric parabolic equations. But you can model those same equations using elliptical equations, because if you think about it, for every ball you throw has two foci, right? Not just one, it has two, which makes it elliptical. So what you're seeing is a part of an elliptical path, but that elliptical path is the same exact path, as pretty much almost, as a parabolic path. So sure, you could use the elliptical equations to model rocket trajectory, but why would you? Because it's far more complicated and it gets you the exact same thing. Why would you use this convention?
Well, I think that his fans, or the people that he's trying to present to, are not people that would happen to know put that argument together. I mean, I took a lot of science in high school, but never paid attention to it. Had I not taken any refresher courses, I would have just sat here blankly watching you as you explain that. I'm not saying that creationists are dumber than me, but I mean, that said, I mean, if I didn't get it, and they seem to have the same grasp of science that I did before I got passionate about science, I would imagine that argument wouldn't even make sense if you explained it.
I think you're absolutely right. I think they prey. I guess a good word. They prey on those people that are not that familiar with it. Matter of fact, there's some interesting things when it comes to light speed. Like, for example, somebody had asked in the live chat about what does instantaneous mean? To a photon, it travels instantaneously. It lives and dies at the same time. Believe it or not. So,
yes, it is. You're right. You're right.
Which is hard for us to understand. So light that has traveled from a galaxy that's 13.8 billion years is traveling at light speed. It is instantaneously hitting our eye to its view, to its vantage point. But that's because it's relativistic. It has undergone, the Lorentz transformations. But it thinks that we're traveling instant. Again, perspective, right? I hate to say perspective, but that's what it is. There is no preferred frame of reference. But from the photon's point of view, it travels instantly, But they asked, if light is instantaneous, wouldn't gravity also have to be instantaneous? How would that affect gravitational waves? It would have to be the same thing. Now, the force carrier for electromagnetic radiation is a photon. The force carrier for gravity is a graviton. If it hasn't been discovered yet, it may not exist, but hypothetically. So yes, it would have to hold true for all types of waves. Because if the universe is only 7,000 years old, gravitational waves were created 7,000 years ago. So how are we discovering gravitational waves if they've been taking billions of years and millions of years to get to us? Well, because they travel instantly one way. It would have to be the same, right? Would you agree, Tony? Yeah,
I would think so. I mean, I'm sure if I was a creationist and favoring creationism, my argument would be, well, that's not necessarily true. And that's where I would end it. I wouldn't have any argument after that. But I've often thought about that. We can't really test a graviton. So that's where their argument would be. Nobody's ever proven that there is a graviton.
Yeah, it's hypothetical, but so what? Black holes were hypothetical at one time. Neutrinos were hypothetical at one time. And graviton may or may not exist. I mean, again, I think there are some issues with the models that we have, obviously, because there's a lot of competing models to solve all these problems, but we're not sure which model is correct. And we are not sure why things like relativity do not play well with quantum loop gravity. They're incompatible with each other for the most part. They work independently of each other, but not together. They don't play well together. Uncle Ned, hey, bud, it's been a while. Uncle Ned says, yeah, but the varying light speed idea is as absurd as the ether. I don't think it's not really absurd because, again, the convention works, dude. This is why this is what Jason Liles actually utilizes to get over on people. It works. The math is correct. Okay. So you can't say that the math doesn't work, but it's a convention that you can use, but why would you? It doesn't solve the problem because all it does is say, look, we're just going to just change the conventions to make things work. It's basically shoehorning is what it is. It makes things far more complicated. And then it presents these other problems, right? Because you have to realize we are now seeing things as they are in outer space. And now, does that make any sense to you? Does it even make sense that we're seeing things as they are instantly rather than in the past? Because if you start looking at these Minkowski diagrams, it's really hard to imagine what that'd be like. Uncle Ned for 5 Australian says the big question about the speed of light changing is how does it make change and determine what direction is moving? No one knows. He doesn't explain that. He doesn't explain what makes one preferred direction over another. Why is it that light? What is it the observer that makes it such that light is traveling instantaneously to us rather than just see? It would make sense to see in all directions. That's how Einstein has it.
It seems to me also that with under that guise, I mean, it would seem that he would have to have actually a geocentric universe, because when you look out into the universe and you look further away, you start seeing different things. You start seeing, you can actually start detecting, the microwave background radiation, but you can start seeing things that are a little bit different as we get further away. And if his theory is correct, if that idea is correct, then the visible universe is the entire universe.
Yes.
Because otherwise the light from beyond those stars would be here as well.
Correct. Yeah. And there's some interesting things I've read to try to do experiments to try to show about his model, what the ramifications of it. And one of the ones I had read, something along the lines, was like, let's say you have a mirror at 5,000 light years away, and you look at the mirror, which would be instantaneously to us, and then you look in the mirror in the back of us. Those stars in back of us wouldn't have been created yet. We would see pitch blackness. We would see the formless void, according to the biblical narrative, because light had not reached, light has become, if you're seeing things from the other side. And so there's these weird little things that would be quirky if his convention was true. Now, yes, the mathematics again work, but doesn't mean that it doesn't lead to these other types of apparent absurdities and paradoxes. It gets rid of one problem, the distant starlight problem, but it creates other problems that make it even worse, I think. So
yeah, as long as it looks good on paper and it sounds good to the average person, because let's face it, does the average person really have a need to understand the physics that go behind it?
No, not at all. Most people don't get into relativity. I mean, by the way, like my little ship here. Watch this. Wait, wait. So watch. Ooh, oh shoot, one button. Watch this. It's traveling to the star. So if we had a rocket ship that was going at infinite speed, right? It would be from here to here in no time, right? And then on the way back, see if I can rotate this. I'm playing right now. gonna have some fun. So let me see if I can rotate this 90 degrees.
Well, you did.
Yeah, I did the wrong. Yeah, I did the wrong thing. Wait,
You need to do 100.
there you go. There you go. On the way back, it's traveling half the speed. So that's how that would work. But let me show people on this diagram, because again, you had mentioned a great point. How many people really bother to ever really learning about this stuff? So this is what's called a Minkowski diagram, and I asked for somebody to join us one of the days to really dive into this type of diagram. I'm not lying. I've read about this diagram in maybe 7th grade. I was reading about Minkowski diagrams. I was fascinated by them. And not many people are probably going to be bothered to go out and try to learn something like this. I get this. Matter of fact, let me ask my audience, how many have seen this diagram before? A basic Minkowski diagram. Press 1 if you've seen it, 2 if you have not. And I mean, you've seen them. So
I've seen them. I didn't know they were called a Minkowski diagram, but there's a book that came out in the 80s called The Dancing Wu-Li Masters.
Yes, I've read that book in high school.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So you know where I'm going with
I read that in the Tower of Physics.
Ah, yes. Yeah,
yes.
Both of them.
Yes. See, we had a lot of the same background, I think, because anybody who, back in the 80s, you read the Dancing Wu-Li Masters, you read Tower of Physics, you read Isaac Asimov. Paul Davies.
No, I missed that one, unfortunately.
Have you heard of him?
Oh yeah, I just haven't read it.
Yeah, I had him on the Agree to Argue show. I talked to Paul Davies and Hugh Ross and Fuzz Rana at the same time. It was great.
You had Hugh Ross on.
Oh, I've had Hugh Ross on many times.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I would actually consider Ross a personal friend. I've actually hung out with him many times in real life.
Oh,
you know that?
Cool. I did not know
Yeah,
that.
Ross is a great guy. He just gave Reasons to Believe over to Fuzz Rana. Fuzz is now the president of Reasons to Believe. Yeah, I'm still friends with them all. They're all great people. So when people say, "Oh, Steve's against Christianity," I've never said anything of the sort. I respect them immensely. I don't have to agree with them, right? But so what? Russ is, he was a nice guy. He's one of the nicest people I think I've ever met in my entire life, and he really does believe what he believes. But so what? He's still an astrophysicist. I read his book, Improbable Planet. Matter of fact, I have a signed copy from him. They actually sent me the book to read, to review, which I did. And then I met him for the first time, and he signed a new copy for me.
Oh, nice.
But it's a good book. It's a good book. It really is. I don't agree with his complete argument, but it's not like it's like younger creationist nonsense. He puts out actual physics and actual science, and then interprets it maybe in a biblical sense. But he doesn't get the science wrong from what I can see. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's a lot of his arguments come down to this is amazing, and because this is amazing or complex or very difficult, it seems to me that the best option is an intelligent designer.
To some degree, yeah. To some degree, yeah.
A Bible verse that will give a little bit more illumination on that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Because he thinks things are very improbable, right? I mean, because in his book Improbable Planet, he talks about 5 major catastrophic events that would have destroyed life as we know it. Completely, or should have destroyed life as completely, but it didn't. Life survived. Life finds a way, and the fact that we are here because of that. Matter of fact, if even one of those cataclysmic events didn't occur, life would not have been as we know it.
Oh yeah, no.
So 5 cataclysmic events we have survived. So he calls it an improbable planet. Okay, it's a probability argument, but that doesn't get you to God. This means we've just been very lucky, and life finds a way. Life is probably a lot more hardy than we probably want to realize. Life wants to exist for some reason. Doesn't imply God.
Yeah, I dismissively refute that a lot, and I shouldn't do it so dismissively. But my rephrasing of it, and it's not even my own, is essentially the argument comes down to if things were different, things would be different.
Right. And, there's an infinite number of possible worlds out there, each one with an infinite number of contingency. So just because we have one actualized possible world, it is what it is. This is our reality. This is what we got. Why we have this one? Yeah, people can philosophize about it all they want, right? But there's no real answer to it. I believe. I believe that I will say that I kind of agree with Nietzsche a little bit when it comes to like absurdism. That man tries to seek value and seek purpose and all these things, but the reality is you never really find it. I think existentialism is kind of a way to go, that we create our own purpose and value. I don't have a problem with that personally.
I don't have a problem with creating my own purpose. I figure we do that anyway. I mean, most of us, even if we are put on this planet for a purpose, most of us are serving a purpose that either we or somebody else delegated to us.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, most of your life is spent eating, sleeping, working, and shitting. That's your life. You know?
Yeah. For the most part, yeah.
So real quick on this Minkowski diagram. For people that are not familiar with it, most of my audience actually is, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. But basically, this is just a representation of how light travels from a specific origin, right? So if you imagine an X and Y axis, where on the Y axis is time, which is your vertical, and your X axis, which is your horizontal, that as something moves in positional wise on the space-time diagram, it's going to have to be always going through time, going forward, because one thing we find about time, if we're not moving, we are always moving forward in time, right? It's just a constant. We're just moving forward in time. But as we move through space, we're changing our position spatially. So there's 3 spatial components, right? There's X, Y, and Z axis, and then you have a temporal component. So what this does is basically says, look, the fastest you can go is the speed of light according to Einstein. So that's going to be a 45-degree angle called the null line or world line between the time and the space axes. So this is just basically saying that light is going to travel inside that cone from its sort of origin, which is basically really a 360 sphere if you think about it. So this is just a two-dimensional representation of time versus spacecraft. So nothing could be out here. I don't know if you can see can you see my mouse when I do this? My hand? I don't know if it shows up on the outside.
No, I don't see your mouse.
Yeah, I don't think it shows a mouse.
It could just be because I'm old.
No, I just don't think it shows on my pointer. But if anything outside of this light cone on this hypersurface right here doesn't exist for the most part. I mean, it's just elsewhere. It's outside space and time, whatever that would mean. Okay, so everything that's in our future is in this forward direction from time. Okay, everything in the past is in this past light cone. Nothing could be on either side of this, because what that would mean is it's outside space and time. It'd be going faster than the speed of light, which presents problems. Because if the speed of light is the governing limit to a speed of a vector, that means the fastest you can go is this 45-degree angle on the light cone, which makes it 360. Right? I mean, that's in a nutshell. I'm not going to get too much detail because my audience already knows what this is. But the interesting thing about this is that if you have a path of these things, right? If you have let me move this over. If you have a bunch of light cones like this, right? So this is a representation of 3 different time periods, where the first representation is time A, then time B, and time C, or time 1, time 2, and time 3. And so this particle is moving through space and time, just like we are right now. But if you add another space-time diagram, right? If these things are separated by these distances, then this light cone will never interact with these light cones. The only way these things can occur, called simultaneously, where you have interactions with other things in the universe, is if the light cones intersect. If the light cones never intersect, they are forever, in eternity, causally isolated from each other. This is, like you said, outside the cosmic event horizon. We'll never be able to see those things. Why? Because those light cones will never interact with us. They're so far out here, they'll never interact with our light cone. They're causally inert from each other. There's nothing that could ever happen in one that can affect the other. Plus, they're unknowable. We can never know about events that happen that. It's just blocked off information-wise. The thing with the Lisle's convention, though, is if light travels instantaneously, shouldn't we be seeing things that we shouldn't normally be able to see outside our light cone? Because it's no longer traveling at 45 degrees angle. Again, maybe I'm not understanding his model, because he mentions the Minkowski diagram in his paper. But I think I'm having some kind of a misunderstanding of what he's trying to say, because if light travels to us instantaneously, we should be able to see beyond the cosmic horizon, or there isn't anything past the cosmic horizon.
If that is the case, though, then we are at the center of the universe.
Right. That is geocentrism.
Has to be.
Yeah. I just don't. It just makes so many more problems than when it solves. Right.
Yeah, and ironically, he's not the only one that's doing that. There's a group that forward an idea called the electric universe.
Oh yes, I'm familiar with the electric universe. Thunderbolts project.
Is that what it is? Okay, I'm working on an episode on that.
Yeah.
But it's hard because it's hard to take it seriously.
Oh yeah, it's a joke.
But But then what happens is, as soon as I give up on it, then I'm in a debate somewhere, and somebody says, "Oh yeah, well, what about the electric universe?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Well, okay.
now I
Okay.
gotta take it
Have you got to the
seriously."
sapphire yet?
No.
Okay. So yeah, so when you look into the electric universe, you're going to find something interesting. They all have all these experiments they want to fund that they can't get money for that won't work anyways. But none of them have actually demonstrated anything about electric universe. It is all conspiratorial nonsense about misunderstandings of electricity. One person was trying to convince people that the sun was a big transistor.
Yeah. I had read that the electric universe idea had predicted how a collision occurred on one of our crafts collided with a comet, and that it predicted a particular kind of flash. And that's the one I'm really kind of look into. It's it looks like it's a pretty weak argument,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't really look like it was predicted. But I do need to confirm. I've got to make sure I get some of the sources, and a lot of the sources, believe it or not, you can't just get.
They have no primary
the typical
sources. Yeah, and I'm not familiar with that particular one. I know that there has been like Humphreys had an argument about the decay of, I think it was Saturn or Jupiter's radiation belts, and he was in the ballpark. It wasn't right. It wasn't completely right, but it was just a lucky thing. But younger creationism doesn't predict that. He based it on other models, of physics. But yeah, okay. So what? You got one minor thing right? I mean, that's not predictive ability. Predictive ability is consistent predictions, not getting a lucky hit.
Maybe I'm confusing it. I did an episode on his planetary magnetism calculations, and he did claim to have predicted Mercury's magnetic
weakness
field
being weak. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, I could go into detail on why that was wrong, but the one you're talking about is Uranus.
Uranus
had a magnetic field, and according to him, NASA thought there was no magnetic field there.
Right.
And so I had to look up his stuff, and no, there was nobody that was arguing
nobody said
that there's no magnetic field. But then his other argument is that he guessed, or he predicted the strength of Uranus would be he predicted it more accurately. And no, he didn't. What he predicted was that its magnetic field would be somewhere between Earth's and Saturn's.
Okay, that's pretty big range.
That's pretty big range, and that seems obvious
because the planetary size. Yeah.
Yeah, the planetary size. That's the first thing I would guess. And NASA was actually had a range. I think it was like 20 Gauss. I'm not sure what the actual amount was, but it was within the same order of magnitude at least.
Yeah, that's I think I remember that sounds familiar. Yeah. I remember it was in a range, and of course, it's like, okay, it's kind of bland, but yeah, that was Humphrey's work. But as far as like your Thunderbolts, yeah, that's a train wreck, dude. Be prepared for that. That's a train wreck.
I'm not looking forward to it.
So I want to show really quick before we move on to another P.R.A.T.T. But this is like for Einsteinian travel, when you're just like when you're not moving near light speed, so there's no time dilation, right? There's no Lorentz time dilation. You're just moving through time. You don't have to move through space. If you see two events, like where B is, it says event 1, the flash, and flash 2, it's simultaneously, right? Simultaneity, right? It'll show both of them at the same time. Why? Because light's traveling at a 45-degree angle to B. So B says, yes, both these events occurred at the same time. Well, according to relativity, simultaneity doesn't really exist. There's no preferred frame of reference, because if you're traveling near light speed, like Lorentz speeds, A is traveling not quite 45 degree, but it's traveling at near speed of light. It's going to see 2 in first and say, what happened? What was the causal things? Did 2 happen first and then 1, or did both happen at the same time? Well, according to A, it observes event 2 first and event 1 second. So it would say, well, event 2 happened first, event 1 happens second. So it really depends on your observation of what you think events occur in what order. No big deal. That's actually just relativity. But what's an interesting thing, and the only reason I didn't want to bring this up, because I don't know how this would work in Jason's model. Interesting fun fact: if you were to go faster than the speed of light, it always is going to result in time travel paradoxes. Always. The reason being is, if you look at these diagrams and you recognize that the time and space lines are always going to be revolved around a 45-degree axis around the world line, the null line, that if you send a signal to A instantaneously from B, if like he's talking about instantaneous light speed, if you send a signal to A saying, hey, look, event A happened, flash 1 happened, right? And they have knowledge of it. They say, okay, we know that the flash 1 happened and flash 2 occurred. So they'll say, okay, they have knowledge they shouldn't possibly have, right? Because normally you can't have knowledge that travels faster than the speed of light. But let's say hypothetically it could. What happens would be if they actually send a signal back to Earth, it's going to be on their space line, which is going to be a 45-degree angle from our space line. So it's going to be returning to us on the Einstein y-axis before we sent the signal. Now, again, you just have to do the math on this. If you want to go look on the, I think it's Paul's physics notes online. He has a really good breakdown of all this. It's not easy to read, but he has a really good breakdown on it. But essentially, you just have to recognize that because the way space-time works, and you're going from the space-time line, the way the events unfold, that, yeah, they would see event 2 first. They would know about event 1, which is not a causal relationship, causal paradox. But when they sent that information back to us, so they got the message we got from them would be returned to us before we sent the message in our past light cone. Now, I don't know how that's a paradox, right? This is why you can't go faster than the speed of light, too. But how does that work on Jason's model? Anybody?
I obviously can't answer for that. Hopefully somebody has an answer. It'd be nice if you had more creationists that watched you.
I have one right now who's watching. Otangelo.
Oh, okay.
Your buddy Otangelo.
Oh, Otangelo. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm going to get a physicist who really knows these diagrams really well. And we're going to try to have a show just on Minkowski diagrams and maybe Penrose diagrams, if you remember them. Fascinating stuff. All right.
Roger Penrose.
Yeah. I like his work, by the way.
I do too. The thing is, there comes a point in physics where it gets a little beyond me. I try to. I do my best. I do pretty good at understanding it, but I'm kind of. There was a criticism that somebody had about Feynman, Richard Feynman.
Mm-hmm.
They called him the Great Explainer, but there was somebody who'd commented that he explains it really well. 5 minutes later, you totally forgot what he said. And I have found that has been the case with me for him a lot. I've had to, I got to go back and watch that again.
Yeah, no, as we get older, that's the case as well. I was like, my God. Yeah, I've had times, I swear to God, I've had times I go, oh my God, that makes brilliant. Why didn't I think about that when I was in high school? If I would have understood that back then, and then 2 days later, it's like, what the hell was I thinking? What were they talking about again? What? I still don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Because this stuff doesn't stick with you. It's just not a field that we spend our lives doing. So people that are in astrophysics, they know this stuff like the back of their hand. We're not astrophysicists. We're just lay people that like these topics. So yeah, we tend to forget a lot of stuff. Okay. But anyways, okay. So moving on a little bit. What Pratt do you want to talk about? I don't want to talk about Noah's Ark a little bit, only because I wanted to show you something, a little presentation that I had on it. But what Pratt do you want to on Noah's Ark do you think is the funniest thing that young Earth creationists believe about Noah's Ark that just doesn't make any sense? Because I personally believe very strongly that most creationists that are PhDs have cognitive dissonance. I believe that they're trying to wrap their head around what they know from their training that is so incongruent with reality in order to justify their belief that the Earth has to be 7,000 years old, right? Because they won't get rid of that. That is their basis for their entire reality, that for some reason the Earth must be 7,000 years old because that's how they interpret the Bible. That's it. Everything else has to be false if that goes against them, right?
Right.
So what about Noah's Ark that you think is so comical that younger creationists have to have some kind of cognitive dissonance to accept?
As far as a Pratt, I don't know if I have a particular Pratt in mind, but whenever I see creationists, specifically, especially ones that are actually working in geology, that are big believers in the flood, they go out of their way to try to downplay, what you do with geology, how you actually find oil, how you actually find gold, how you actually find diamonds. And it's not a Pratt on their part, but I'm constantly asking, well, how do you find gold by assuming that the world was flooded? How do you find oil by assuming the world was flooded? We do have models on, especially finding oil, that require the world to be millions of years old. I've actually covered that in one of my episodes on that happened to be about ocean fossils. That's it. Okay, why? Here is the P.R.A.T.T. Then it was actually an episode on ocean fossils on mountain peaks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very common argument. How did they get there? Obviously, there had to have been a big flood. And the other version of that, or the uniformitarian model of that, is that millions of years ago, India slammed into in the case of the Himalayas, India slammed into what is now Asia, and that caused the Himalayas to rise up, and so all of those fossils are from the bottom of the ocean before that happened.
From millions of years ago.
From millions.
There's
of
no
years
modern
ago.
fossils up there. They're all very old species.
Exactly, and that was the first thing I thought of. Is when I was actually going to research that, I had no idea what I was going to argue with. I just decided to do research. Obviously, the first thing I thought is, well, if those mountains are being pushed up, then all of the fossils should be ancient, and that is exactly what we find. We don't find anything from younger than I think it was 70 million years ago that collision happened.
Yeah,
there's none that are any younger than that up there. But then I also looked up another little thing that kind of back in 1912, a guy by the name of Émile Argand proposed that because we know that at the edge of oceans, at the edge of the continental shelves, we see that oil traps form, and they form in conjunction with what are called salt domes. And so because of that, his theory was that since India had slammed into Asia, causing the Himalayas, that below that we should find salt domes entrapping petroleum deposits. And at the time that he published that, there were oil mines. There was the Dig Boy mine, but the way you found oil mines back then, or oil deposits, was you just happened to run into them. Either they seeped up to the ground, or you were drilling for water and you happened to find oil. With Émile Argand's model, we were within 20 years, they were able to find petroleum deposits, salt domes, and able to enrich the Indian supply. And so now India was like 7,000 barrels a day, is now several million barrels of oil a day, simply because of applying Émile Argand's principles. That said, to this day, I'm aware of I'm aware of two models of creationism, or how a flood could have caused oil deposits, but no method of finding them.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because you're well familiar with, remember Zion Oil and Gas?
Yes.
And so
that's right.
Yeah, Zion Oil and Gas they're a biblically oriented creationist group that drills for oil. After their third or some odd dry well, which was basically prayer, hey God, show us where these are. You know, I'm sure it's pretty expensive to drill a well, right?
Yeah.
And so their model didn't work. They have to use old Earth modeling. If they want to make a profit. Guess how much their shares are worth?
I can't imagine.
25 cents a share.
Oh wow! Well,
yeah, because
I mean, invest,
yeah, exactly.
I got to give them props though. They put their money where their mouth was, and they actually applied their theory. It didn't work, but at least they tried it. Because what we're mostly seeing is people, putting up blogs and making their criticism.
But here's the thing: they actually had to believe their shit. They actually had to believe it because they're not going to waste money. They don't believe. They actually were. I absolutely convinced that they were full-on creationists and still are. And they said, okay, we are going to let God tell us where to dig, rather than use these models that say, okay, because of plate tectonics, because of uniformitarianism, because of geological timescales, we would say, okay, where is it more likely we're going to find petroleum? Okay, we're going to go dig there. Oh, shit, we find, gas and oil. But no, they wanted to use the, God's prayer, divining. It's kind of like divining almost. But after the third or so, dry wells, they realized that model doesn't work. So you had brought up an interesting point to me not too long ago. You said, what is the advantage of creationism over evolution? What do they think their advantage is, like for society, other than biblical belief? I don't have an answer for that. I don't. They have no real life utility to have creationism. If creationism is true, okay, great. Salvation, why would that be dependent upon that? Why would God give a shit about what you believe the age of the earth is? Why is salvation dependent upon that? It is far more likely, because man is fallible, that people that believe in creationism, that they have to start with the premise that God created the earth 7,000 years ago, that they're wrong. it's far more likely they just have a false belief. Far more likely, because everything else would have to be wrong for them to be right.
It's interesting you tell me the other thing I was thinking about. Yeah, you're right. With that company, that really bothers me. They didn't even think to maybe talk to Steph Hirema, who is a well-known geologist, who is a well-known creationist. He actually has worked in mines, and he has overseen how mines work, or not mines, sorry. Well, yeah, oil wells. I don't know why they wouldn't have at least gone to him, because he's got this fingering model on how salt domes form, and salt domes almost always, not always, but not actually, not even almost always, sometimes have petroleum under there. So that would have helped him figure that out. I mean, his model at least has something equating to reality, whereas Walt Brown's doesn't have anything. You can't really do anything with it.
Well, Walt Brown also has hydroplate theory, right?
Well, it's part of his hydroplate theory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's like, okay, let's say everybody said, okay, let's become young with creationist and believe the Earth's 7,000 years old. All of science goes out the window. We would never get anywhere. I mean, look at the James Webb Telescope. I mean, look at the amount of scientific research and technology went into developing that. That could never happen in a creationist model, because if we're seeing light as it is and things of that nature, again, I think all of physics would have to change, and our understanding fundamentally would have to change. Certainly how stars are produced, right? I mean, our understanding of how stars are produced takes a very, very long time, right? Very long time to make a star. But nope, God did it in one day.
We'd not only have to change our understanding of physics because to respect the to respect the biblical models that they have. We would also have to change our understanding of physics to also, I mean, while doing that, make it also adhere to what we know works. Because of for example, the Big Bang model, we were able to predict the cosmic microwave background
We've
radiation.
mapped it. We've literally mapped it. Yes, the Wilkinson probe.
And yet, the creationist model, if it's only 6,000 years old, we'd have to kind of figure out how we can work the two, how we could take the creation model that explains the background radiation, and then use that to predict something else. And we're just going to be stuck.
Exactly.
It never does predict anything.
And let me ask you, so like our buddy on Townsville, who's like the resident creationist, it's funny because he thinks he knows a lot more about science than he does. He has DK. I mean, I'm seriously convinced he has DK. If he had an understanding of these topics, he would be able to go to school and pass these courses. Okay. Most of us have college level education on these types of topics. It doesn't mean we have to have a PhD. Just, I mean, basic undergrad stuff. Almost all of us have taken courses, physics courses, math courses. We've demonstrated that we can pass these types of courses. I don't think he has any of those things. And even if you take these types of courses and you use a young Earth creationist thing, you'll fail the course. Every PhD that's a younger creationist, they had to use old Earth creationist modeling. And it wasn't because, they wouldn't have given him a degree if they didn't. It was, this because it works. If you think that your models work, then, go ahead. The fact, look, if I was in a course and I could show that the Earth is only 7,000 years old while I'm an undergrad, I would be the most famous person on the planet. Yeah, just prove Einstein, as an undergrad? Come on.
That would be, that would make your career now, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't be here with you. No offense. No, I'm kidding. I'd be doing just what I'm doing now. Yeah, I mean, but seriously, how all they have to do is demonstrate the stuff. J.S. Lisle's model doesn't demonstrate anything. It's just a convention. It's just smoke and mirrors,
That's my feeling on it too. Tangelo, I haven't really heard him come across as believing he knew more than the scientists. Maybe he has, but that may not have just been in a conversation I've had with him. My typical, and he knows, I've said this to him before, so it's not going to be anything surprising, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because he's not able to defend himself on it. But it basically comes down to, this is really confusing and complex, so therefore a designer, an intelligent designer, is a better explanation.
Yeah, no, he's run that argument before.
That's the only one I ever see. Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure other people see. I'm sure he's got other arguments, but those are the ones that I encounter. And that's the complexity model. I mean, I've come up with, I've gone through. I've actually done a video on how complexity can arise naturally. I've explained that, but The fact of the matter is, if it seems complex, I could see why that would be why you would doubt that there wouldn't be an intelligent designer. I could see why you could propose the idea, but is that a better explanation? That's where my issue really lies with most of the creationists that make that argument, that it's a better explanation, because my idea of what's a better explanation is, what can you use it for?
Yeah, the utility.
I care what you can do. Utility. And now I say this because I believe I've seen you somewhere point out that if you're just utilitarian, something's missing, or you're bound to fail. And I don't disagree with you there. But when it comes to things that I don't know anything about, that I have to trust, the utilitarian is where I'm going to go.
I don't have a problem with that. No. I absolutely agree with you. Look, when I'm talking about utilitarianism, I'm actually talking about moral theory. Because appealing just to utilitarianism as a moral theory isn't going to work very well for you. That's why I tend to moral pluralism. But I think that you kind of pick and choose a little bit what works for you at the time. You don't have to have one specific moral theory and say I'm going with utilitarianism this time, but consequentialism, never. I'm going to appeal to consequentialism for this particular thing and utilitarianism for the next one. But when it comes to science, we want science to have utility. Right? We want to be, and our society is predicated on the fact that these things produced results. Right? The James Webb telescope is one of the greatest achievements of mankind that took, 9 years or something like that to get in outer space?
Yeah, was it just 9? I thought I heard.
I know, it was a long time. Time.
I've been hearing about it for a long time, to the point though I thought, I guess it's already up there. And then only in the last 6 months have I heard, it's about to be launched, and then it was launched. But I kept hearing about it for years, and I thought, well, when are we going to get these good pictures?
Yeah, I mean, Hubble was amazing at the time, and this is like eons beyond Hubble. And imagine what it's going to be like hundreds of years from now when they have newer versions of these telescopes that can peer back even further into the cosmic microwave background radiation and gravitational observations, because I think gravitational waves are going to be I think hundreds of years from now, that's going to be so developed, it'll almost be like radio astronomy or even visual astronomy, and it's going to show us things that we have no idea even exist. Just blow our minds.
Yeah. Well, and all the other spectrums that we use to look at stuff. I mean, there's things that we have no chance of detecting. Who knows? Maybe a different spectrum or a different way of looking at the universe. Maybe we'll be able to solve the dark matter problem. Maybe we'll be able to confirm that there is dark matter, or maybe we'll be able to confirm something else that's causing that extra amount of gravity to appear in galaxies.
That's another P.R.A.T.T., actually. Creationists tend to take anything that's unknown and use it as an argument, which I think is dishonest. It is
because it's making the argument as if you got your conclusion, instead of, this is our explanation, and now let's go ahead and see what we can test. The whole dark matter thing, I'm not sure what the response is on what's causing that extra amount of gravity or the gravitational lensing. Well, actually, I do know a few arguments, but the direct arguments I've not really seen much of, because basically most people don't go into too much on the.
It's the hand of God.
With me anyway.
It's the hand of God. It's so dense. Well, and you can ask a creationist, and I have talked to creationists, and I really never got a straight answer. I would ask them, what are the only things that we know that can distort space-time? Matter. That's it. Right? Can anybody think of any other thing that distorts space-time? It's only matter that can actually produce a distortion in the gravitational field. And so if we're seeing some kind of lensing, we're seeing something where there should be matter there that we're not seeing visually, meaning it's non-photonic. There's no photons leaving there to reach our eyes. It's dark. That's why it's called dark. But there has to be something there that's causing the warping of space-time, because that's the only thing that we know of that can warp space-time. If creationists have something else that can do such a thing, then it doesn't have to be creationism. It can just be science, right? Fine. What is it?
Yeah,
it's cold. The only thing that makes sense is cold, dark matter. It's cold, meaning it doesn't radiate any energy. It doesn't radiate any heat. It doesn't radiate any photonic energy. It's cold and it's dark because of that, and it's matter. It may not even be baryonic. It might even not be comprised of normal material that we think of as matter, like atoms. It might be some new particles. Who knows? But they don't seem to have an explanation for it either. And they just say, well, your model doesn't explain why we're seeing these anomalies. Okay, so what? That's what models don't have to explain anomalies. Models have to make testable predictions, which they do. And then as we learn about the anomalies, we make modifications to the theory. We have new theories. Like Newtonian physics didn't explain Lorentzian transformations. Why? Because they didn't know anything about relativity. They had no idea that there was inertial, no preferred inertial frame of reference. They had no idea that near the speed of light, weird things happen. But we know this to be the case. Why? Because we have GPS that has to be based upon those facts. Right? GPS literally does account for special and general relativity.
Now that I think about it, I do recall that the argument is that we came up with dark matter as a rescuing device to explain why galaxies aren't flying apart.
Yeah, and that what's funny is that, but that's a P.R.A.T.S. because same thing. Do you remember back when the neutrino was first posited? They're like, why? Where's this missing energy? We see a decay, right? We see a neutron form into a proton and produce a neutrino, or an electron, but there's missing energy here. Where'd it go? Right. Oh, what would we call a neutrino? Oh, well, yeah, but you haven't proven that it exists. Well, no, but the energy's got to go somewhere. If not, we have to, our entire physics is wrong. Guess what they found? Neutrinos. Now they know that neutrinos are everywhere. Billions of them go through every second. Trillions, actually. I mean, even like a pinhead has millions, if not billions of neutrinos go through it. So yeah, they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. But, before we were born, they didn't know they existed. I think it was discovered the neutrino. What was it? I think wasn't Pauli was the first one to suggest it in the 50s or 60s?
I'm not sure. I never read about it until the 90s when I was in my astronomy class.
Oh, I loved it. I took astronomy in college too. I loved it.
I loved it. Yep. Everybody else was failing it, and I got an A.
I got an A too.
I understand why. Because it was
loved
fascinating to me.
I loved it. Exactly. And I got to tell you, I took astronomy, I think it was either the early 2000s, much later in my life, or in 95, because I went to college twice. I went and then I took some time off and went back, and I don't remember when it was, but I remember very distinctly in my astronomy course, I finally figured out how the celestial sphere worked. I never really could conceptualize the celestial sphere properly, but we had, we did things with the constellations and the declination and right ascension and things of that nature. I'm like, oh well, shit, this is a lot simpler than I thought. But up to that point, I remember distinctly not really understanding how the celestial sphere worked. I thought I was an idiot. I was like, I should have known this.
Like I said,
it just clicked. It just clicked from there. I'm like, oh shit, okay, now I get it. How to do the declination, RH, and all this other stuff. I like telescopes. I just didn't really grasp. Okay, well, here's it all goes around here, and okay, and then of course you have the telescopes that have the equatorial mounts, which makes sense. How an equatorial mount works on the right ascension and declination. But real quick, what?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, so Chris says the problem with Christianity doesn't work in old Earth model. No young Earth, no Adam and Eve, no fall, no need for crucifixion. Which he makes a good point. Matter of fact, Reasons to Believe, which is an old Earth creationist group, they recognize this as well. They still believe in Adam and Eve, but they believe Adam and Eve is an ensoulment of some kind of hominid that lived, at some point in time, right? But they're calling that Adam and Eve, which doesn't really make sense in the biblical sense, because I believe Adam and Eve is a myth. I may be an agnostic, but Noah's Ark is bullshit. Adam and Eve is bullshit. Hell is bullshit. I just don't believe any of that stuff. I would believe it's absolutely BS. Does that make sense? Even when I'm an atheist, I never believed that. I remember when I was Mormon, they were talking about Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden being somewhere in was it upstate New York or Illinois or whatever? I don't remember what state it was. It's somewhere in the Americas.
Actually, Nephilim Free once proposed that it was in Independence, Missouri.
That's right. Yeah, it could be. Okay, so Missouri, whatever. It's somewhere in the United States. I remember the Mormons believed that. And I always thought to myself, but the Adam and Eve story doesn't make sense. I knew a little bit about science, so I was like, genetically this doesn't work out. But I never really believed it. I'm like, okay, maybe until I learn more about it, right? One of those things. I'll just go with it because I got baptized Mormon. But as far as like the flood, I was like, yeah, this is all bullshit. Never once did I believe that you could stick that many animals on a ship and have it sail across the ocean, which I know now much more about it to know exactly why that's impossible. But before, even then, it was inconceivable to me. It was like, well, where'd the poop go? Where'd Where'd the poop go? Oh, they just shoveled it out the deck. They have 8 people taking care of thousands of animals, feeding, watering, and pooping. No.
Well,
no.
Because people today don't know how to work.
Oh, that's right. They have no. You know, have you seen that little meme where it says 1920 people today do not have any work ethic. 1930s people today have no work ethics. 1940. You know, the problem with today's people is they have no work ethics. Every decade has said that.
Yeah.
You know, they're not the old days when people knew how to work. You know, back when they were building the pyramids, man, they knew how to put those things together. You know,
they did.
I want to show you something real quick before we get to another P.R.A.T.S. what people want to talk about if they want to bring anything up. Because I got to tell you about this Noah Ark. I think we're actually wrong because I actually found evidence there is a Noah's Ark. You want to see it? And I'm not talking.
I can't wait.
I'm not talking about Ken Ham's thing either, man. So you're gonna be blown away here, dude.
Not gonna be a rock formation.
Nope. Your whole understanding of reality is about to be rocked. You're gonna have a paradigm shift. They call them. Ready?
Awesome.
There it is. There it is. This is in the Netherlands, believe it or not. Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really amazing because this is Noah's Ark, and they. Hang on.
Does it fade away in real life too?
No, hang on. Why did it fade away? Hang on. There's more images. One sec. Where did they go? Man, I told you I'm having difficulties today. I'll fix it. I got this.
I've been thinking this whole time, man. Steve's got his graphics down, man, because you didn't used to have all this animated stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying new stuff out. I'm like really upping my game a little bit. And that, by the way, that simple stuff that I just showed you earlier, that took like hours last night to do. Oops, I'm moving that around. I don't want to do that.
Looks like my camera went off for a second.
That was in your end, right?
I believe so. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I didn't turn off your camera, right?
No. Okay, I thought you meant when you said it was in my end. I was like, what are you trying to say, Steve?
Okay, why is this not showing now? I had this working last night. Okay, give me 1 second here. Okay, I want to show you about that arc. It's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm looking to hear about it. I want to know.
I can't pronounce the name of the town that it's in because it's in the Netherlands, and I don't.
Do you know if it's anywhere near Amsterdam? Because I'm going to Amsterdam in November.
No, the city starts with an S or something. It starts with an S. Let me do it the old-fashioned way. Hang on. Let me get rid of all this. I'm going to have to do it a different way because I really do want to show you this.
Johan's Ark.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty cool.
It's in Dordrecht, Netherlands.
I thought it started with an S.
Looks like here it says Dordrecht. I could be wrong. It's Wikipedia. How accurate can it be?
Okay, let me do it this way. 1 sec. I'll just show my screen. My system is being bogged down a little bit too, so I apologize.
It's a 59-minute drive from Amsterdam. I might be able to squeeze that in.
You should go check it out. Like I said, it's the Ark. So
I think my wife would kill me if I did that, but maybe.
Okay, so I'm almost there. 30 seconds. I can do this. Have faith in me.
I do.
Because I really do want you to see these. Because I was like, holy cow, it's the Ark. I can't believe this. I was wrong all this time. It's supposed to be as a slideshow, but whatever. Now that... Yeah, here we go. I'll just do it this way. Whatever. All right, so here's the Ark, right? Can you see it?
Nope.
Now you can see it, right?
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the Ark,
I don't think
right?
anybody can see us, but we can see that. Oh, now it's gone.
Can the outside see this? Okay. So there's the one. That's the inside. This is how they ate, apparently. You know.
Does it actually? Because it's a barge. Apparently, does it actually go anywhere?
No, it's fixed, and it's a cafe. It's a little restaurant or something in there. Here, but it actually says Ark von Noah. Yeah, I mean, this is proof positive. This is the Ark, guys. Proof positive.
It has to be.
It's labeled. It's right there. It says their name.
They couldn't charge for it if it wasn't true.
Exactly. If it's on the internet, it's be a fact. Look, they even have animals. There's a horse. There's a fake bird. Clearly, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know you could. That's impressive to you, but you know Ken Ham's has dinosaurs in it.
I don't know why they don't have dinosaurs in this. Maybe they didn't care about the dinosaurs. They had to exist, right? So they just wanted elephants and birds. But here, look at this. You can actually order stuff there. Noah had commissary there. Noah could just go get food and order it. Cool.
So who was the cook?
His wife, wouldn't it have been one of his wives?
I
mean, he had one wife and 3 kids, right? Or 4 kids? I don't remember.
Yeah, 3 sons.
Look, there's an elephant. Proof positive. Here's Noah and his kin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, hey, we got it wrong, man. What are you going to do? Noah's Ark is true. Who would have thunk, right?
Not I.
So, yeah, I thought you got a kick out of that because I literally have never seen that before.
I may actually go see it. I'll see if I can talk the wife into it.
Did you find what city it was in? And by the way, why are you going to Amsterdam?
We were considering moving to Ohio, and we thought over Thanksgiving we'd take a plane trip to Ohio and just look at homes there. And it turned out the only flights there included a layover, and it would have taken us 15 hours to get there from Las Vegas, for God's sake. And so
wow.
When my wife was looking around, she happened to also stumble across a trip to a flight to Amsterdam, and it was only 10 hours. Obviously
nice.
A little bit more expensive, but only a 10-hour flight.
Do it
there, and it's nonstop. So suddenly we're going on vacation.
Absolutely. By the way, I figured out how to do this right now. I figured out nice. Now I've got it. So there you go.
We're just going out there to have fun. We're gonna go visit the Anne Frank house. We're gonna visit the Heineken brewery.
Oh man, that sounds amazing. I'm envious, actually.
Thank you.
Yes, but yeah, this is what it should have worked. This is the other way I did it was like behind the scenes, but this is what it's supposed to look like. I'm working on my graphics here. Okay, I have to do my own shit now.
There is one tour that I think is fascinating. I think everybody else would find it fascinating, but maybe not. There's a tour we're taking called The People of Amsterdam. And we're basically spending a half hour each. It's like a 5-hour tour, but each one of them, we're spending a half hour with different people who live in Amsterdam and work in Amsterdam. And one of them, like we're going to be spending a half hour talking to one of the prostitutes that works in the red light district. We're going to be talking to somebody who works at the brewery. We're going to get an idea, 30 minutes of just question and answer, and get an idea what these people's lives are like in Amsterdam.
Oh my God, I'm so. And matter of fact, you mentioned that. I've been wanting to do man on the street stuff here. I have even got a sticky self. Yeah. Look at that.
You could be the next Ray Comfort.
Yes, exactly. Banana Man. But I have a really, my phone, believe it or not, my phone records really nice video. People underestimate a phone. They can record some really high-end video. So I got a phone that can really do some nice recordings. I also got a tablet too. But I want to do some like man on the street video. And I talked to a friend of mine that I actually know that lives in this area. And she's interested in kind of conversations as well. She says she might watch this video. So she does. Her name's Bronte. Hi, Bronte, if you watch this. I really want to do what you're doing. I want to be able to go out and talk to people in real time about these subjects. And I'm envious that you get to do that.
I can't believe she booked it, but she got it. So, yay.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Let me see here. Okay, hang on. I got to fix something real quick. Because you're frozen on my end, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was me or if that
no,
was
I think it's me. Is that fixed now?
Shutting my camera off. Well, I can see.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Are you sure that was that me? Are you sure that wasn't me?
No, it was me. It was me. Yeah, I had minimized the StreamYard window, and when I do that, it just doesn't capture. I don't know. The problems of streaming, right? People know the pain is real. The struggle is real. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm still frozen. Or frozen again.
Why would see? Here's the thing, though. You're not frozen on StreamYards here.
Okay, now I can.
Okay,
now I'm moving. Okay.
All right, now you're moving. Now we're cooking with gas here. All right. So. All right. So what P.R.A.T.S. so other people want to hear? Because again, you got Tony here. He has gone through and he's gone literally on his channel, and I think addressed every single. I mean, he has like 165 different episodes. So he's probably at least had some kind of tangential or tertiary level of understanding of most of these topics. Matter of fact, I remember your one on polonium halos.
Yeah, that one, that with Robert Gentry's work on polonium halos, I don't hear that argument very much anymore, but I used to get it all the time, that this proves beyond a shadow of a doubt. Every once in a while, I'll get a straggler who's just new to creationism talking about it. Obviously, I mean, it would be no surprise to anybody watching the show that there's actually no evidence for that to be. Well, first of all, Robert Gentry has not shown that the halos are in fact polonium halos, but as a lot of people point out, polonium is in a decay chain of one of the isotopes of uranium, and it could even as far as you know, each of those halos, if they were in fact polonium, could have been produced 5 minutes before they were discovered.
So I did a 2-hour video on this particular topic, and if I remember mistaken, I think I left a message on your video, and I think maybe I don't remember if you asked me something about polonium halos when you did this video or not. I don't remember, but I remember I did a large presentation. If you haven't, go check it out. Check it out on my other channel, Steve McRae channel. I did a whole presentation on polonium halos of Gentry's work, showing why Gentry screwed up. And so, yeah, there's some huge problems with what Gentry was saying. One, as you said, it seems to be these things are created in situ by creationist magic, for lack of a better word, because he says it doesn't prove a young Earth, but it proves that the Earth was created relatively quickly, and he's talking like less than 2 weeks. Okay, which is nonsense. He doesn't necessarily show that some of the halos are polonium. It doesn't ever explain how we actually have discovered that these polonium halos, right? We can see where the parent isotope is, and we can also see where the daughter isotope is, and there's almost always these microscopic cracks, right? Where the radion gas will leak from the parent to the daughter and then decay into the polonium byproducts later on. So we understand the mechanism by which these polonium halos occurred. But I grew up in the 80s where this was a big thing. I remember this was a big thing of creationists. Oh, these are, this shows the proof of God. But I didn't know physics at the time, right? I didn't graduate from nuclear power school. I didn't know what the hell polonium even was. But now that I understand a little bit better, yeah, what Gentry was saying back then was bullshit. This is why most creationists will not run those arguments, because it has been disproved countless times, because we do know now why we find these little halos. Why? Because science discovered the answer. It wasn't because of God. It was because of radon gas seeping through microfissures. Simple as that, which is in the decay train. What is it, radon 222?
218, actually.
I'm getting looks here. What did I do wrong? The air needs to be on. Okay, your turn. Okay. All right. It is getting hot in here. By the way, that's Cano, my moderator right there.
Nice. The other thing I noticed about that argument is what you were just saying is he proves that the Earth was created quickly. Well, you're going to have to explain when the actual granites were created, because we have under where those granite deposits were found, we find several layers of fossils. Mm-hmm. So life obviously existed long before these granites were created. So I don't know what I guess maybe at one point in time he thought the word primordial meant before life, or if he did, or maybe he thought I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Primordial had to be before life, because again, he thinks these things were primordial, that they were created at the time the Earth was created. But again, his model. I mean, he is a younger creationist, so he thinks the Earth is 7,000 years old. Yeah. And it's so funny when you actually read his work, you can see some of the methodology he used was flawed. He didn't have enough sensitive detectors to even detect where one halo ended and one began, and some of them were like overlapping. And so there's a margin of error there based on the energy level of these radioactive decay products and these fission fragments and these fission tracks and the alpha particle as opposed to the beta particle and the gamma particle. These are all energy levels that are they have a degree of variance even among a single isotope. So yeah, you're going to get some variance in the halos, and he didn't have a micrometer or a detector that can detect. I think 2 microns was his sensitivity, but some of these overlap within 1 micron. How could he even tell they were polonium halo? He couldn't. There's no way he had enough sensitive detectors to even do it. So yeah, it was just his way of putting out, again, to the young creationists, something that he wanted them to latch onto and say, oh, look, we have evidence now. But of course, people that looked into this, that knew science, said, no, this is not. We can't explain it yet, but eventually we can. And now they can. And guess what? Creationists no longer use Gentry's, polonium halos.
That's what it seems like. Every once in a while, though, you still get somebody that'll mention it. Another P.R.A.T.T. that I hear a lot, and I think you were interested in hearing about this, is things about the moon. I'm not sure which ones you're thinking of, but one of the very first ones I covered was the idea that the moon would have been touching the Earth only a billion years ago or something like that.
Yeah, Jason Lisle argues that, actually. And he knows he still does, even though he knows what the Roche limit is. He understands tidal forces. He understands these mechanics. He knows his argument is bullshit. He knows why the Earth would not be touching the moon. He's a PhD, for God's sake. He understands this. So I think he's just dishonest, because that is a bad argument. But I think he still uses that argument because I've seen him argue it in a video.
It is interesting, because I know that I know that I gave a calculation that was generous to the creationists when I did my presentation on it, because I believe the very first time I heard it was Kent Hovind, who was saying that the Earth is going away, or the moon is going away at about 3 inches per year. Well, it's actually 3.8 centimeters per year.
Yeah.
But I just did the math based on that amount, that recession rate, and if you multiply that by 4.5 billion years ago, you only end up with 171,000 kilometers that it would be any closer. And right now it's 365,000 kilometers. It wouldn't even be half that distance closer. But then, there's some other work on tidal rhythmites that have found that, that rate has actually, and we don't need this to make the argument, but actually the rate has been much slower in the past.
It's increasing, I think, right?
It is increasing. Yeah. And the reason why is because the moon is able to, it's escaping the drag of our gravity, so it's able to escape faster.
Yep.
Or at a faster rate. So I forgot what the actual measurement was, and it's not. Oh, it's by George E. Williams, by the way. But he was showing that it was a recession rate of maybe 2.17 centimeters at 650 million years ago. So I mean, it was 2.17 centimeters. So it was obviously we have evidence that it was actually slower in the past. I know that one of the creationist arguments is that it must have been faster in the past, and you're gonna like laugh at this, but the argument for it, to explain it to me, was, well, obviously when you throw something in the air, it slows down before it comes back down.
Yeah. I've heard flat earthers use something along the lines, because they don't understand how forces work. They don't understand impulse. They don't understand momentum. They don't understand any of these concepts of drag, but no, that makes, when I first heard the moon thing, and I was like, this is like a Hovind argument, right? This thing like, this makes no sense. Now, I didn't know what the Roche limit was at the time, and I didn't understand the physics, but it's just like common sense was like, no, I don't think this makes even sense intuitively speaking. But yeah, I think that most young creationists don't use that argument. That and the moon dust argument, they don't use that either. Matter of fact, creationism.com specifically calls that one out and says to creation, stop using that argument. The moon dust one, right? Because again, they didn't know how much moon dust was supposed to be there. That was just modeling. But as far as like the distance to the Earth, if the moon was super close to the Earth, it would be destroyed. If it was rotating that rapidly with the tidal forces and tidal lock, because the Earth and moon are tidally locked, that's why we only see one side of it. Right. The moon rotates. The moon does rotate, people. I've had people try to explain to flat earthers the concept the moon rotates. We're like, well, we only see the same side of it. Yes, because it rotates. If it didn't rotate, we would see the other side of it because it's on the other side of the planet. The Australian in our live chat would right now be seeing the other side of the moon when it goes around, right? So of course it has to rotate with us because that just makes sense. But go ahead.
Funny you mentioned the moon dust argument, because there's a creationist by the name of Larry Dye who has decided to market himself as Larry Dye, the creationist guy. He actually brought back the moon dust argument in 2015, and I think I saw him present it on Ian Juby's channel. I may be wrong. or maybe it was Carbo.
Either one. Well, Carbo died, right? He's dead, right?
I
think
Bo.
Yeah, I think Carl's dead. Juby's still doing whatever Juby does.
He's still alive. He's still got followers, and every once in a while, I get hit with something that he's written.
I still think my favorite is his dinosaur argument that the dinosaurs were running from the flames and having eggs in a line as they go.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, those are one of those where you just have to do that Tucker Carlson look on your face, just like.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Don't you think some of these creationists seriously have to have some kind of cognitive dissonance? I mean, the PhDs are not stupid. I think they actually know, but they have to believe what they have to believe for whatever reason. But the other people that buy into the shit, the people that buy into like even Juby shit, these people have to be stupid.
Here's the thing. Whenever I see him make that presentation, and I've seen him make it on stage, I mean, these are people that paid to get there to watch somebody present evidence for creationism.
That's true.
These are followers. They're already sold.
Yeah, he would never be able to present that into anybody that knows what the hell they're doing. And he doesn't have any qualifications anyways. He lied about his qualifications. He doesn't have any education in this stuff.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
No,
that.
Juby has. Yeah, he's not informed any of this stuff. He thinks he's becoming a pro science communicator that knows about dinosaurs and stuff. No, he's got nothing. But he was on Carl Baugh's show, I think, at one time, and Carl Baugh was just like eating it up, going, "Oh, that's fascinating." Yeah.
I often wonder some of those hosts when they're listening to an idea being proposed, they've got to in the back of their head go, "Oh my gosh, this guy."
People are buying this stuff. Really, people are believing this. Dinosaurs running from the fire, from the flood, because of catastrophic events, and laying eggs as they go. Which, by the way, Juby doesn't. One, he got the eggs wrong. He got the name of the dinosaur wrong. He just found a source and he just ran with it, and he got all the information wrong about it. And there was actually 2 rows. They were laid in 2 rows. Yeah. What they do? Dinosaur come back around and go back. It's running from the fire. It lays a row of eggs as it's running away from the cataclysmic fire, from all this shit that's going on when Jesus was crucified, I guess, or before then, or the flood, whatever the hell it was. But then they came around and laid another thing, a line of eggs.
That doesn't make sense. Maybe he's proposing that they have 2 uteruses.
To completely just to
right next to each other.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
No,
they'd be.
You could only come up with more surreal explanations for how it could be true, which unfortunately I am prone to do, because I know that I actually share pretty much the same beliefs you have when it comes to religion. I don't have a problem with Christianity. I don't have a problem with any of that. There are certain things I know are bullshit, but that's about the extent of it. I'm actually to the point too where I actually do try to find common ground, even sometimes. Where when somebody's trying, because they have their faith and it's good for them, they enjoy their faith. I don't want to be anywhere near ruining it for them. So here, it could be compatible with science this way, but in the end, when it comes to the flood and Adam and Eve,
it's incongruent.
I can't justify it.
Yeah, I'm willing to look, if they want to believe that Jesus was crucified and all things of that nature, and God violated the laws of physics. Okay, that's a belief. But when they go into the realm of science and they say, okay, this is like Noah's Ark isn't supposed to be supernatural. The flood clearly was, but Noah's Ark is not. They did not ever say God, sustained these people. God did anything supernatural with the ark itself. This was all man made this, right? Noah built this, right? Over how many years it was. It took him, because he's 700 years old. It took him a long time to build the ark, get the animals together. God could have done that instantaneously, right? If he wanted to have, right? He could have, hey, here's an ark, or he could just transported things where he wanted it to be, right? So.
Yeah, well, yeah, that the thing is, that if you believe in the sacrifice of Jesus, I still have to wonder, why did we have to go through the flood in the first place?
Yeah, a lot of it doesn't make sense.
And ended it there.
Yeah,
we would already be raptured by now.
I'm everybody knows I'm agnostic, but I have fun. I mean, I think I've reached to the point where the Old Testament is just a story. Yahweh, I believe, doesn't exist the way most Christians infer him. Could there be other versions? Yeah. But as far as the God of the Bible, does not exist, at least not the way they're describing him. If there is a God of the Bible, it is vastly different than the way they're describing it, and there might be some overlap. But he's looking at these people, these younger creationists, and going, guys, you got it more fucked up than most people, okay?
Yeah.
At least. There's one other thing I wanted to bring out on here.
You wanted to talk about Lucy, I think.
Yeah. You want to touch on Lucy real quick? Because that's a big canard with younger creationists, because they keep on saying like Lucy is a human with rickets, and they're not. I know Nephilim Free talks really a lot about Lucy and the pectoral girdle and all that stuff that's a little bit more complicated when it comes to the anatomy that I'm not familiar with, but no creationist has ever been able to show that Lucy is not a different species, a completely different species than a human. It is Australopithecus aerophanus?
Australopithecus afarensis.
Afarensis, yeah. So Lucy was Australopithecus afarensis. We're Homo sapiens, right? So,
Correct.
or say Homo sapiens sapiens. So we're in a different branch than Australopithecus. Completely different branch. They're different than us. We're not descended from Lucy. This is a P.R.A.T.T.S that some creationists say that, oh, we're related to like directly related through lineage with Lucy, or it's just a chimp or something with rickets. No, it was a completely different species, right?
Right. Actually, it's funny because, well, first of all, the rickets, I'd never heard that about Lucy. I'd heard that about Neanderthals, but I had not heard that about.
I've heard about rickets, about Lucy, not just Neanderthals. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd heard it about Neanderthals. With Lucy, the most common argument I get is that it was a common chimp. But as far as some of the other things, that is the one canard that I do see a lot, is that we're not saying that Lucy was our ancestor. You maybe something on History Channel might tell you she was our ancestor, but none of the scientific literature says she was our ancestor. She just happens to be representative of that kind of anatomical change that must have occurred at some point in time. When you're talking about the pelvic girdle, when you're talking about how part of the hip bones had to be changed.
In order to fit, there's a big actually story behind that, of how that they actually that actually came into being. And I watched the thing on a very long time ago, and it was all above board. There was nothing. They were trying to make it sound like scientists were trying to do something dishonest. Do you remember I'm talking about when they had to rebuild like part of the? So maybe you could touch on that, because I'm sure you know way more about it than I do, because I haven't touched on this particular topic in ages.
I'm actually trying to get my notes up on that, because yes, it was actually a hip that was broken and fused specifically. The argument is that it was broken and fused because it looked like a chimp's to begin with, and it looked nothing like a chimp's. It just happened to be, the chimp's condyles sorry, that's not the right word, but they flare outward. And so that's how it was initially put together. But when they put that together, they only had one side of the hip. When they put it together based on that, and they used bisymmetrical, or they assumed it was bisymmetrical. Mm-hmm. So when they put it together, the two little top things at the bottom would overlap. They had to go pass through each other to exist. So when he looked up here at the top area, he had to straighten that out. And then when he put it back together, suddenly they fit perfectly.
Yeah, the iliac blades, right?
That's it.
Iliac. Yeah, the iliac blades. And then the bottom, that's what you're referring to. Yeah, and it was, and so creationists like, oh, look at these dirty scientists doing stuff. No, they're using anatomy. They're using the bisymmetric, because the pelvis is bisymmetrical. There are certain things we understand about anatomy that must be the case. And by using this kind of knowledge, they can make these kind of determinations. There was nothing trying to make it fit into the theory. It was, there was only half of this. They have to rebuild the other half. And this is how they went about doing it, because this is how anatomy works.
Right. The part that was broken off, you could tell it was broken off and refused. But here's the thing that really gets me, is it's not the only Australopithecine.
Oh, we've had hundreds of them now. Yeah.
We have plenty of them.
Yeah.
And we didn't do that to all of them. It was just Owen did that. I'm forgetting Owen's first name. My apologies to him. But when he reconstructed it, it was specifically because it would not fit together in any other way.
Owen Lovejoy was his name, by the way.
That's it. Yeah. Owen Lovejoy.
Yeah. So, this is what I'm saying. I think that creationists have to find these little types of slight anomalies, and try to run with them as much as possible. I think that they have to keep the creationists believing what they believe, because they don't have anything else they can do. All of science goes against them, and they know this. They recognize, most of the creationists say, modern science is wrong. It goes against young creationism, but they're forced and locked into this presupposition that creationism must be true, and specifically the young Earth creationism, right? Many of them won't even they won't even move to old Earth creationism. They won't even say, yeah, look, yeah, all this science and stuff is true. God created all this stuff. He did over billions of years. I don't understand how, why, whatever. But these old Earth creationists don't argue that every little thing that they find is some kind of vast conspiracy. I think younger creationists are conspiracy people. I think they're just the same as flat Earth. They have to have a conspiracy because they think all these scientists, all these people that are well educated are wrong, and yet they have a handful of creationist scientists, and I'm not even going to use their scientists because they're not, but young Earth creationist PhDs that they exploit because those few happen to believe this very specific thing. But even they had to get their PhD according to all the, the deep time stuff, I guess, so to speak. All of them.
Definitely.
Every one of them. So none of them got their PhD based on creation science because there's no such thing as creation science.
I actually think you're right, though, by the way, about the conspiracy theory. I've been saying that from the beginning. At least, from the beginning, sorry, or at least for the last 10, 15, 20
You've been
years.
around for a while, by the way. Now you're old G. You're an OG
it's hard
now.
to realize that, but yeah, I got my YouTube. I first put my YouTube channel up in 2004, so we're coming up on 20 years.
We started at the same time. I started buying in 2000.
It's like within 3 months.
No,
of YouTube
oh my God.
invented.
Yeah, I didn't start until 2014. You're a decade older than me.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
holy crap,
yeah,
you're OG. You're really OG. I'm nobody.
Just in case anybody knows, though, I was not on YouTube when it was meant for trading porn videos of yourself.
Is that what YouTube's for? Or that's what the internet was for?
That was what YouTube was initially for. It's for dating and showing lewd videos of yourself.
What?
Yeah.
No, the first video on YouTube was called a trip to the zoo.
Yeah, that is once they rebranded themselves, but there was
really?
a different product that was here
I did not
before.
know this. This is news to me. This is a conspiracy stuff because I've never heard this before.
But as far as the conspiracy theory goes, I've been very vocal for the past 15 years or so that creationism is by definition a paranoid. Well, sorry, young Earth creationism is by definition a paranoid conspiracy theory because by definition you have to assume that 95% of all scientists working in every related field are either extremely incompetent or extremely dishonest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I'm even going to let you get away with saying by definition because that is defined in DSM, things of that nature, of what paranoid and what conspiracy is. It is well defined. These are not descriptive. These are, I think, more prescriptive type things. So yes, I think you're right.
Here's why, and there's a rule that I have, and this is my own definition, so you can feel free to disagree with it. But the reason why I call it a paranoid conspiracy theory is because paranoid conspiracies are very much like Lay's potato chips. You
can't just stop at one.
Have just one. And everybody I know that believes in young Earth creationism specifically may be a 9/11 truther. They may be a moon conspiracy theory. They may be a flat earther, but they have at least one or two other pet conspiracy theories that are just as outrageous as creationism, as young Earth creationism.
No, I think that's a good axiom. I think that's I think that's a good. I think what's a better word? Not axiom. I think it's a what's the word? It's not a theorem. Conjecture. There you go. I couldn't think of the word conjecture. I think Tony's conjecture on conspiracy theories that every conspiracy theory person out there doesn't have just one that they like. It's always more than one. We should do a test on that. We should get some conspiracy theorists, see which one they have, and then, okay, what else do they have? And see if they have more. If they say, no, it's just the only conspiracy theory that I buy into, then your conjecture is falsified. See, you could do a test on that. But I think you're probably right. I don't know any conspiracy theorist that only has one theory that they believe. They usually buy into multiple because they don't have the critical thinking skills to recognize that, yeah, these are actual conspiracy theories. I mean, look what happened with Alex Jones on the whole Sandy Hook thing. I mean, people that bought into that, these people were psychotically conspiratorial. Anybody who thinks that Alex Jones was telling them the truth about that, they have to have something fundamentally broken in their brain.
Yeah, that the whole Alex Jones thing, Actually, I'm not happy about a lot of things that happen to people, but I am very glad that the Sandy Hook family got him for that, because I think we have a real problem. I love to have the freedom of speech in this country, but the fact is now you're able to spread a bunch of lies like that and get away with it is a real problem for me. And actually, that's something I had against Kent Hovind, because as you may remember, we had a shooting here in Las Vegas that was kind of a big deal. There was a big concert, and a guy sitting up at the Mandalay
Yep, I
Hotel,
remember.
Mandalay Bay, just firing at people. And he continued, because he's not original, he continued Alex Jones's idea that this is all a fake flag. It was all actors wearing Hollywood blood. And there are people like myself who happen to have known people that died in that particular event. And so, that's some, I mean, I wish I could go after Kent for that.
No, I absolutely concur with you 1,000%. And I do think Kent Hovind is detrimental to science. I think he's dishonest. I think he's evil. And I do use the word evil. This is what I'm saying. To have him back on the Non-Sequitur Show, even though I'm sure I get views out of it, I would really have to be hard-pressed to have people convince me to do so. And I know people have tried. There are people that want to have him back on. And I am entertaining the arguments. But I got to tell you, he's such a just horrible fucking human being. You know?
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hate that because I can't be civil to somebody like that. Because we have conspiratorial nutters out there that have been after people like myself and people that put out, debunking stuff, and people that have gone against the conspiracy people, and they go real life. And these people are freaking dangerous, man. They are. Real quick, I do want to put a shout out to people watching from the Atheist for Liberty. That's a group that I have involved myself with, and I have actually donated a little bit to funding. I've become a member to Atheist for Liberty. That's with Thomas Sheedy, who's a great guy. And so, even though, again, I'm an agnostic and I'm not promoting atheism, people say, oh, Steve's against atheism. No, I'm against people that are in atheist groups that are dishonest. And I'm not going to support those types of groups. But I like Atheist for Liberty. Go check them out. A little plug for them.
I hate to ask you to extend that plug, but can you tell me what they do?
Yeah, so Atheists for Liberty, basically, our beliefs align when they want separation of church and state. They want secular society. They don't want religious influence in government. They don't want people voting people in that could influence and change government merely because of their religious beliefs. Because we see what happens with that, and it's dangerous. Nothing good comes from this. The people that are in office that have these really bizarre religious beliefs that want to apply them to everybody should not be in office. They're allowed to have their individual beliefs, absolutely, 100%. Believe what you want to believe, but you cannot make policy for people based upon your own personal beliefs. We had a vice president at one time who believed the earth was young and thought that only anytime Jesus would come around. So why worry about climate change? Who cares? The earth is, Jesus is going to come around, and why waste resources with that? That's not who we need to have in office. Yeah. No. So definitely I support AFL and that, and some other things we actually agree with. They're anti-woke. I'm anti-woke. I'm anti-PC. And so they do so in a very, very a blunt way. I think that basically the best way to describe it is me if I ever got into politics. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm middle of the road, right? I'm more of a centrist. I'm not right and not left. They don't have any partisans. They don't care if you're right, you're left, you're center. They don't care. What they want to see is less government. They want to see people have their freedoms. They want to see more secularism, and they certainly do not want religious influence. And I think that is exactly what I want as well. And so, yeah, I happen to like what their mission statements. They do need to fix their about page on atheism, which I've already written them a new thing for them, and Thomas is hopefully implementing that. Hint, hint. Because their page on it's really bad, but I'm looking past that because, again, big picture. Just because they got information wrong on one thing about on their page about atheism and agnosticism doesn't mean that I don't concur with them on their things that they're trying to actually accomplish. Right, as you said, utility.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm assuming that the thing that irks you about them is that they believe that atheism is simply a lack of belief in God.
No, actually, they accept both. They're a little more open-minded on that. So, but they do have agnosticism a little off, and they do support the lack of belief atheists more than the other one, but I think they're a little bit moving because most of their members are philosophical minded. These are not dumb people. I've been in the group chats with them. These people are wicked smart. Like, holy shit, are they smart? And I think a lot of them do actually subscribe to atheism as a belief that God doesn't exist, but they want to be more inclusive, and I get that, but at least they're open and honest about that. They don't lie like the Atheist Community of Austin and Atheist Republic and American Atheists. Those groups are dishonest as shit, people. If you're an atheist and you have anything to do with ACA or American Atheist or American Atheist Republic, you need to rethink your life values, because those groups are just as dishonest as Young Earth Creationism. They don't care. They're all about, ego and politics, their own political agendas. They're not giving a shit about you or anybody else. So that's my little rant for the day.
That's fair. I'm glad I could instigate it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think a lot of them are conspiratorial-minded as well. Look at Aaron Ra, who I used to have a lot of respect for, but he thinks that Christians are somehow changing word meanings and that everything about philosophy has been corrupted by the evil Christian. That's conspiratorial.
Yeah. I've got to say, when I started off, because he was the first person I'd ever seen do an errata video. And then I've seen several.
He does errata videos. Yeah, and I respect him for that. I respected
that, and that was something I wanted to emulate. And let's face it,
sure,
the way I actually talk in my videos is not dissimilar from his timbre. But I got to say, he's kind of going.
It goes off the deep. His philosophy sucks. Everybody that knows about philosophy will tell you straight out, he is absolutely incompetent when it comes to these topics, and yet he's going into these subjects that he shouldn't be diving into. Look, there's certain subjects I know absolutely nothing about. Do you know what I talk about? Not those subjects ever.
Okay.
Right. And as far as like doing an errata video or something like that, why won't he do one on the fact that he has said things about logic that he got wrong? That he has gotten wrong. The people that know logic have told him, Aaron, your understanding of logic is bad. This is objective shit. This is like math. You have gotten it wrong. Fix your shit. And he won't do it. So
are they? Well, I actually, again, I haven't watched a lot of Aaron Ra recently, simply because I just don't have the patience for the length of his videos. If you're watching all of his videos, you've got some free time. I don't have that time.
Well, Aaron, I don't watch much. Yeah. It's sad. I happen to like Aaron personally. Okay, I really do. He's got a great heart. He's a nice guy, except he is just as fundamentally wrong as Young the Creationist. His mindset has a predisposition or presuppositions that are not conducive to a healthy critical thinking mindset, and that's a shame because he has such an influence over people, and he's been on this channel many times. He helped get this channel going. I owe him that. I really do. I'll never just take away from that and discount the influence he had on the Non-Sequitur Show. And he's great at biology. But he's losing all that because people that I know that I respect don't respect him any longer because of the fact he's putting out gross misinformation about philosophy, about atheism, about philosophy, and I can't respect him any longer because of it, because he doesn't fix your shit. So. Yeah, he used to with biology.
Yeah, well, he knows his shit with biology. Yeah. Definitely knows this stuff. I'm always in awe of the things that he comes up with. But yeah, I don't really watch. I haven't watched a lot of his philosophy, so I can't comment on it. I just know that I didn't want to watch him go through everything about the Quran when he was doing that. And now he's
I'm not interested in the Quran. I'm not at all.
And I'm not even interested in attacking more in learning about Mormonism.
Nope,
so
me either.
I tried to read the Book of Mormon, and I could not get through it.
I've read it 3 times, and it is the most boring book in history.
Okay, well, the first book was boring enough for me, and I've read the Bible a few times. Well, of course, I mean, I have a doctorate in divinity, so I would have by now. But and I've also read the Quran, but I could not get through the Book of Mormon. Yeah, it's
a horrible read. It's very, very monotonous. It's just written very badly. It really is written very badly. And I'm like, and I had to think about it later on. I'm like, this is a book of God. Everybody's telling me like this book will get you closer to God than the Bible. I never felt any of that. Never. When I read the book first time, I read the Book of Mormon, I'm like, what the hell did I just read? And then I was like, okay, maybe I'm not getting it right. Even though I had joined the church, but I joined for other reasons. But whatever. But I just was not getting it. And by the 3rd time, I'm like, this is just crap. This is absolute bullshit. So
sounds like it.
But it's a shame because I love Mormons. I do. I have the utmost respect for good, honest Mormon people. I have a lot of Mormon friends. They are some of the nicest, most genuine, most giving people I've ever met in my entire life. Seriously. Mormons are California Mormons. Utah, not so much.
It's a little bit different. Well, I'm in Las Vegas, and most of the Mormons we have here are from Utah. So they're a little bit. We call them the Mormon Mafia because they own a lot of businesses and they kind of do some. There are some Mormons in Vegas who do some really shady stuff. But then again, welcome to Vegas.
Yeah.
So it's not really a Mormon thing; it's a Las Vegas thing.
It's a Vegas thing.
Yeah, I don't fault them for that either, but it's very hard not to when you're working with them and there's.
No, I worked for one for years. My boss, the owner of I was a store manager for Radio Shack, and the owner, because it was franchised, was Mormon, and I got to tell you, it was rough. I didn't like how he ran the business. He had favoritism. It's like, okay, customers you treat one way, but Mormon customers that you treat another way because they're his friends and things of that nature. I'm like, no, that's bullshit. He was just horrible to work for. But anyways, we're gonna wrap it up. I think it kind of get a point across that these things are just canards and these things are P.R.A.T.S. and I hope people look into these younger creationist stuff and go to Tony's channel and watch every single one of his videos. I swear to God, if you want to binge watch something, go watch his series on how creation taught me real science. And you'll get the gist of every single one of these types of P.R.A.T.S. that younger creationists have. Seriously.
Well, I appreciate that. The pride I take in the show is really that I provide my sources so that you don't have to just watch my stuff. You can go look it up yourself, and I give you the resources to do that. And I hope people do actually read. Well, I do know people do read them, but I hope that most people actually, if they have questions with it, that they actually read the sources.
Absolutely.
These are not my ideas. I didn't invent any of these arguments. This is what the evidence was shown through experimentation and observation.
100%.
And yeah, exactly. So, but I thank you so much for having me on.
Always a pleasure.
It's been a long time. I wish we talked more often, but I mean, you got your
well, everybody's busy nowadays, man. I know, and it's so funny. I've got a lot of plans for shows, but I have been so hard pressed to make things happen. I got some named guests that I want to have on that I've been talking to. Now actually developing even maybe a friendship with some of them. But it's hard making these things happen nowadays because I'm going back to work. That's my primary thing. But I'm doing the NonSequitur Show as an aside and my main channel. I still like to get some revenue out of it because I did the show for 2.5 years. I didn't make a dime. Somebody else made $60,000 on it. I made zero. So
you didn't get any of that? I thought you got.
No, I never got any of his money from him. He owes me $115,000. I got a judgment, but we'll do that another episode about that. Yeah, all good. But once,
I actually stayed away from that the whole time that was going on because you guys are both nice to me. I mean, you actually reached out to me, but he was not a dick to me. But
he was charismatic, but he was also dishonest, charismatic.
Yeah, I didn't get to know him nearly well enough to even ascertain that, but I'm glad you got the show back. I was very glad that you got your own channel working really awesome because once I saw that, I was like, oh,
there's some fun stuff we do on that channel. Show. Well, yeah, but you do know that he did get it was demonstrated that he did lie to the court and that he did submit false bank records, right? That's provable.
I read that. I didn't. Yeah. I didn't.
Look I have the video. Yeah, on my channel. I'll send it to you later. But yeah, he was caught red-handed, like a fingerprint. That he edited. He edited the PDFs that he submitted to the court because he opened his Discover account in October, and then changed the dates 2 months earlier to make it sound like he had been living with his boyfriend, and so he changed he tried to just change all the dates to make it sound like he moved 2 months prior to say he got served properly. That blew up in his face. Yeah. Oh, wow. So, but that's for another story. Yeah, whatever. Somebody did ask a great question. They said Mormons, as in Salt Lake City Mormons or St. George, Utah. That's a good question. I lived in St. George, Utah. I was a store manager for the Bluff store. If you're familiar with St. George, there was a Radio Shack there. It's no longer there because they went out of business there. They went out of business everywhere. But I was a store manager for that particular location for quite some time. The St. George, Utah, not so bad. You go closer to St. George, or Salt Lake City, where I was living in Huntington, Utah. Yeah, far worse. I didn't like Salt Lake City. I don't like that area at all. So, but
that's kind of how I'd feel. I've had enough of what I've gotten in Las Vegas. I can't imagine what it'll be like once you get closer to the epicenter.
It's a lot of hypocrisy. But anyways, let me leave you guys with this. Heretical says you should get that atheist pastor guy back on Non-Sequitur Show. He's really good looking and knows everything. That dude's an asshole. No, just kidding. Yeah, well, I have invited atheist pastor back on for something. I just don't remember what it was. We used to do a show called Over and Under, and it was great show. So yes, Chris, I will get you back on, I promise. If you want to be part of the Non-Sequitur Show and be a guest, message me directly either on my Twitter DM for the Non-Sequitur Show, or preferably on my Twitter account, my Steve McRae Twitter account, because that's where I get most of my stuff. But I got to tell you, I'm only be really doing the show once a week at this point, just until I get a little more, stable, I guess. But I'm trying. It's just scheduling is really hard when I say I don't know my next week's schedule, right? And I also messed up today because I was supposed to have Aaron to do a show with, and I double booked it today. I'm so sorry. I went with you, obviously, but I double booked with Aaron. That. Yeah, well, we go back longer. But anyways, like I said, go guys. Thanks for being supporters of the Non-Sequitur Show. If you want to become a member of the channel, you can become a member and you get a little green name. Or we still have Patreon. My Patreon is back. The Patreon went from like $1,300 a month to $1. It is slowly getting back up now. I never expect to go anywhere near that, but if you want to become a patron and support this channel, I am doing a Non-Sequitur Show once a week. We're going to have amazing guests, amazing topics like Tony here, who I got to tell you, he's just a nice guy and he knows his shit. So go watch his channel. I'm happy to promote people's channels if they want to become guests. Thank you, April Von Rand, for moderating for me, and the super chat for $10 Canadian. She has a little sticker with I think it's a hippopotamus going around in a chair. And I appreciate that for all your support. That sticker makes no sense, but I can't super chat for some reason. Well, that sounds like the Non-Sequitur Show. All right, guys, it's been fun. Like, subscribe. Please help share the videos. I'm starting to catch the analytic again. My numbers are going up. That's all because of YouTube. That's all because of YouTube's analytics. It took a long time to catch that analytic before. We're starting to now, but the more you promote it, the more comments you leave, the more you share the video on other platforms, the more it helps the algorithm. That's a fact, right? I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good night, guys, and thank you for joining.